So if we take the prefix I think, as we've established, generally speaking, that's a good prefix. It's very useful in lots of ways. We've also established that in some contexts, I think is weak, or it's too weak, it's not forceful enough. And how, therefore, can we get around this? Well, one way to do this is to start using our experience. And the reason why is because if you say to me, I think it would be a good idea if we did Q, it can be easier for me to say, well, yeah, but I think Y is better. So I can counter-argue, but also we can just use conjecture, yeah? So thoughts based on little or no experience or evidence. However, if I occasionally start to draw on my experience, by degree it can be harder for the counter-argument to come across. So for example, historically, we have found that ... Therefore, sometimes people say, well, I think it'd be a good idea if we changed the software system for processing the project, say. I think it'd be a really good idea. And I might ask you, okay, so for what reasons? And you might say, well, I just think it'd be great. I just got this feeling, So sometimes you can respond with, well, I hear what you're saying, and we have considered that very possibility in the past. That said, we have run it a number of times, and historically, therefore, we found that 8 times out of 9, it didn't work, and it actually caused problems. So when you start to refer to your history or your experience in this sense, it forces the other party to basically work harder or more intelligently, and or to draw on more evidence on their part. Here's another example of an experience statement. As you know, you can play around with pronouns, I or we, etc. I tried that 5 times, and on every occasion, this is what happened. Or we tried that, or we did that several times. Sometimes you want to move beyond several, by the way, and actually number the ways, or numbers. So you might say, we did that 7 times, or we did that 12 times. And what we found was ... So again, as you can see, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for me to reply with, no, you didn't. Very difficult, very difficult. One more example. So in the past, I would approach it like that, or in the past we used to do it like that, and again what we found was ... So once again, consider opportunities, if you wish, to talk about your experience, either for you as an individual and or as a team of people, or even maybe a company. To repeat, when you talk about your history, it forces the other party to do more, so to speak, in senses I mentioned earlier. It can also lead to more questioning from them. So when you say, well, historically we found that, or in the past I did that 7 times and ... what you tend to find is you can often get more questions. Oh, okay, so did you? Yeah. Right, 7 times. Yeah. So what, okay, talk me through in a bit more detail then. What actually happened with this part of it? Yeah? Of course, if they have counter experience, well, fair enough. Fair enough. And you, as you know, are going to have to conduct an appropriate discussion around that. But yeah, if you want to play around with experience talk, please do. One more, number 3. Feelings. So obviously not a cue for a cabaret song, but feelings. Sometimes you can reference your feelings, talk about how you felt about something or feel about something, and that can really strengthen what you're discussing or what you're saying. What do we mean? Well, let's look at some examples. You know, some people, when you mention the word feelings, some people balk at that and get a bit embarrassed or go into themselves or start joking in a bit of an adolescent way, going, oh, feelings. But actually, apart from the fact we have them every day, you'll notice if you listen to yourself or record yourself, you actually use feeling statements and prefixes and so on, like quite a lot in every day. If you just take the moment to listen to yourself for a day, it's quite surprising. And therefore, almost always, what you're saying comes across very naturally. It doesn't come across as odd or pathetic, or a very common phrase is touchy-feely. So, I feel very unsure about that. Yeah. Again, this is very much about context. I'm very aware of context. I would never say that any phrase or word is always good for anything. You really, I believe, should start with the context, which is why I was saying earlier, do watch the video if you wish on context, which lays out what I mean by that. So you start with context, and then that can lead you to which language you could or should be using. So I feel very unsure about that, to be honest with you. Or I feel very anxious about that, if I'm being completely honest. Or I feel very unnerved by this. Or I feel very upset about this. I feel very angry about this. I feel very confused about this, and so on. When you say, I feel ... it's very difficult for the other person to reply with, no you don't, no you don't, surely not. You can't, it's very difficult to do that. Obviously in exceptional circumstances, when you get what I call just evil people, these are people who are aggressive, bullies, ignorant, etc., stupid. They will, as you know, sometimes say, well, I don't care what you feel, just get on with it. Okay, that, yeah, of course, there is that arena of experience in life, as you know. Fortunately, it's not common. Again, I'm going to be making videos on more extreme people and situations, and if you want me to do that, let me know and I'll make you a video. Otherwise, when you say, I feel very unsure about this, it often, again, can prompt questions. Okay, really, I didn't know you felt like that. No, I'll be honest with you, I do. Okay, why do you feel unsure about it? So now I can create a dialogue, So 2 more examples using feelings as a reference to strengthen what you're saying. One example is, I felt very worried about that. Another is, when you said X, I felt Y. If we therefore take the first one, I felt very worried about that. you might say, I'll be honest with you, I felt very worried about that proposal that they made in the meeting, because what it's going to mean is that we are no longer going to be able to finish this whilst we're trying to start this. Or you might say, I felt very worried about that because I had a very strong suspicion that it was going to go wrong, and sure enough, it's gone wrong. Or as simple as, I'll be honest, I felt very worried about that proposition in the meeting just now. You know, it's very difficult for the person who's listening to say, no, you didn't. It's not really an option. This example, when you said X, I felt Y, you might say, I'll be really honest with you. When you said spontaneously, oh, Kurt, just tell the group what's going on with this, i.e. 50 people, and I had no chance to prepare at all. I felt extremely embarrassed and awkward. I just felt absolutely in pieces, and I just don't operate well like that, to be honest with you. It's really, again, it's very hard for people to ignore your feelings. Again, quite often you will either get questions about what you've just said, e.g., okay, I didn't know you felt like that, why do you feel like that? Or you might sometimes get a degree of empathy or sympathy. You know, sometimes people say, look, I'm really sorry, that was not my intention to make you feel that way. I honestly thought that you would like to do that. So sometimes it's worth expressing your inner world in this sense. When you reference your feelings to repeat, it's very difficult for people to negate them, ignore them. Something I always say as well is, obviously don't use this too much, any of these, don't use it too much, because it can either make you seem a bit plastic, a bit unlike you, or it can actually weaken the impact of what you're doing. Something else I say is that there are certain contexts, of course, where you shouldn't use this. One example is perhaps if you're pitching for a job or a campaign or an idea, you want to be careful about how much you use this and where you use it. You can, of course, say, I feel this would be really good because, but if you use it too much or in the wrong place when you're pitching, it can start to sound a bit weak, you know. I feel it would be really good if you did do this. Notice also your tonal delivery, as always, affects what you're saying as well. So again, choose when you use this skillfully. And there you have it, just 3 things to perhaps play around with or to consider when you are thinking about the language that you're using in conversations at work. Strengthening experience and feelings. I will be making other videos on language that will reference other features or facets of language. So if this is of interest to you, let me know and I will happily respond accordingly. If you like, then please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And of course, if you want me to make you another video, or perhaps a video in more detail on one of these, do get in touch and I'll happily make the video as quickly as I can. Thanks very much and all the best.